I want you to picture a scenario. It is a deeply familiar, agonizing scenario, really, that you have probably lived through at least twice this week. You are sitting at your desk, staring at your screen.
Oh, I already know where this is going.
Right. You're on a video call with like 15 other people. You're looking at the gallery view, and half of the people on the grid are wearing that unmistakable expression. You know the one. It is the "why am I here"
Yeah,
face.
the blank stare of corporate despair, eyes
Yeah.
slightly glazed over, maybe looking at a second monitor, silently calculating how much money the company is burning by having 15 salaries sitting in this exact digital room doing absolutely nothing.
Exactly. And the person who actually called the meeting, the one who was supposed to be leading it, finally unmutes themselves. They clear their throat and open with this fumbling. So, yeah, I just wanted to get everyone together to kind of, discuss things, see where we're at.
It's just painful hearing it. Because the moment you hear, see where we're at, you know the next hour of your life is gone and you will get none of it back.
You're just trapped. So we are starting here today because our deep dive is focused on fixing exactly that. We are looking at a brilliant script today from Sharp English Episode 1. It essentially serves as a masterclass in how to run a meeting.
A very necessary masterclass, honestly.
Truly. And our mission for this deep dive is incredibly specific. Whether you are, say, a mid-level professional, a team lead, or just someone who randomly got tapped on the shoulder and asked to run the weekly sync, we are going to equip you with the exact non-textbook English phrases you need.
Right, practical stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Phrases to confidently open, control, and close a meeting. Especially, and this is crucial, when you are dealing with a room of mixed seniority and international colleagues.
That international component is like the layer that makes this so vital.
Yeah.
We aren't talking about memorizing textbook English grammar here. We're talking about language as a tool for control and clarity.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the difference between having a good vocabulary and knowing how to command a room where half the people, speak English as a second or third language.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because before we can even get into the mechanics of how to run the meeting properly, we have to talk about why so many meetings go wrong in the first place. A massive trap that so many professionals fall into is what we're going to call the vibes meeting.
Ah, yes, the vibes meeting. It's defined by two missing elements: no agenda and no clear outcome.
Just completely unstructured.
Right. The leader gathers everyone together and just sort of hopes that a productive conversation will spontaneously generate from the ether. They are relying entirely on the vibes of the room.
It's like getting into a taxi, looking the driver dead in the eye, and just saying, "Drive. You have no destination."
Just drive.
Yeah, you're just sitting in the backseat, watching the meter run up, burning time and money while vaguely moving forward. That is what an agendaless meeting is. It's basically a hostage situation in a taxi.
And nobody wants to pay for a hostage situation. That's why people use corporate jargon to cover up the fact that the taxi is actually parked.
Oh, the jargon is the worst.
When there is no clear direction, people get defensive. They don't want to look like they don't know what's going on, so they start throwing out idioms to sound strategic, like, let's touch base offline, or let's run it up the flagpole.
Right.
And there's a specific phrase of the week from source we're examining today that perfectly illustrates this. Boil the ocean.
Boil the ocean. I have a confession to make here.
Let's hear it.
I have absolutely been in meetings where someone leaned forward, looked very serious, and said, "Look, let's not boil the ocean on this." And I just sat there doing the classic professional nod.
Professional nod.
Just nodding along thoughtfully, furrowing my brow a little bit, projecting total comprehension while having absolutely zero idea what they were actually talking about.
Well, the professional nod is a universal survival mechanism, so don't feel bad. But let's look at what boil the ocean actually means. It means to overcomplicate something, or to try to solve every single aspect of a massive problem in one go.
Okay, that makes sense.
The sheer absurdity of trying to heat an entire ocean is the point. You use it to say, let's keep the scope tight.
Right, and it's often paired with another classic, move the needle. As in, let's not boil the ocean, let's just focus on what will actually move the needle.
Oh yeah, they love pairing those.
It sounds very dynamic, but if you don't actually define what the needle is or what the ocean is, you're back to just running on vibes.
Think about how exclusive that language is, too. If you are sitting in an office in Tokyo or Berlin, and a native speaker from Chicago suddenly talks about boiling an ocean and moving a needle, you are completely alienated.
You're just totally lost.
Exactly. When you rely on jargon, you are failing your international colleagues. Clear, structured language isn't just about sounding professional. It's about making sure everyone on the call actually understands the objective.
What's fascinating here is that mastering this kind of structured, clear English fundamentally changes how you are perceived at work.
It really does.
When you strip away the useless jargon and the vague vibes approach, and you replace it with authoritative language, you stop being perceived as just another attendee. Your competence in the corporate world is largely judged by how tightly you manage shared time.
And time management in a meeting begins the exact second the calendar invite says it begins. Which brings us to, honestly, the most critical window of a meeting, the very first 30 seconds.
This is where so many people lose the room before they even start. You look at the participant count and you say the phrase we hear every single day. Okay, I think we're almost all here. We're just waiting for one or two more people to jump on.
Doing that implicitly communicates something terrible to the room. When you wait for latecomers, you immediately tell everyone who showed up on time that their punctuality was a mistake.
Right, like, sorry, you're on time.
Yeah, you're saying being late is perfectly fine. Worse, you are effectively handing over control of the meeting to the person who isn't even in the room yet.
You're telling the group that the meeting hasn't really started. And the second you do that, what happens? People pick up their phones, they switch tabs to their inbox, they check out mentally.
You've invited them to disengage. So the fix for this is highly practical. You just start exactly on time.
Zero grace period.
Exactly. If the meeting is at 2 o'clock, at 2 o'clock and 0 seconds, you open your mouth and you use a very specific 3-word opener. Shall we get started?
Shall we get started? Now, I have to push back on this a little bit.
Okay, go ahead.
Put yourself in the shoes of a mid-level manager. You have the VP of regional sales on the call or a major client. Doesn't "shall we get started" come off as a bit abrupt? My instinct would be to go with the safety of something like, maybe we can begin now if everyone's ready.
Right, the softer approach.
Yeah, it feels softer. It feels like I'm acknowledging the hierarchy in the room.
But that instinct to soften the language is exactly what undermines your authority. That softer approach sounds like you are hoping someone will grant you permission to do the job you were asked to do.
Oh, I see.
The psychology behind "shall we get started" is entirely different. It is a signal, not a request for permission. It's confident without crossing the line into aggression.
It's direct, but it's framed as a collective action. Shall we get started?
Yes, it demonstrates respect for everyone's time, including the senior people in the room. In fact, senior people appreciate this more than anyone because their time is their most constrained resource.
That's a really good point.
When you use those 3 words, you own the room from the very first second. You establish structural authority. And from an international perspective, directness translates beautifully. There's no cultural ambiguity in "shall we get started."
Okay, so you drop the 3 words, you've got their attention, their tabs are closed. Then what? You immediately follow it with, just to set the agenda for today, and then you list a maximum of 3 items.
Not 10. 3.
3. And you state exactly how long the meeting will take. You look into the camera and say, that should take us about 25 minutes.
Think about the psychological relief that provides to the people in the room. By stating the exact agenda and the exact time limit, you've removed the anxiety of the unknown.
They know exactly where they are.
Right, what is expected, and most importantly, when they get to leave.
You essentially drawn a map and handed it to them. But of course, human nature practically guarantees someone is going to ignore that perfect map and try to drive the taxi completely off-road. You've opened beautifully, but what happens when someone inevitably derails the conversation with a tangent?
Well, this is the true test of meeting leadership. Anyone can read an agenda. Not everyone can defend it. You usually have 2 extremes in these meetings, the people who talk entirely too much and the people who stay completely silent.
And you have to manage both.
Exactly. But the overtalker is the active, immediate threat to your 25-minute timeline.
We need incredibly tactical phrases here. Let's do a quick role play so you can hear how this works in real time. Let's say we are in a meeting about the Q3 marketing budget. I'm the overtalker, and I suddenly pivot the conversation.
All right, I'm ready.
So regarding the budget, I was actually looking at the new expense reporting software the company just bought, and honestly, the interface is a complete mess. I can't even figure out how to upload my receipts.
Can I jump in here? That's a really important point about the software. Let's park that for now and make sure we come back to it when IT is on the call.
Boom. You stopped me dead in my tracks, but I don't feel angry about it.
That relies on 2 distinct maneuvers. The first is the interruption itself. Can I jump in here? Notice that I didn't wait for you to say, yes, please, go ahead.
Right, the instruction is that you say it and then you just go.
The phrase itself acts as a verbal turn signal. You are politely signaling that you are entering the lane of conversation. If you wait for permission after asking, you will lose the moment, especially with a persistent talker. They'll just take a breath and keep going.
They really will.
It's assertive, but it softens the interruption just enough so it doesn't trigger a defensive reaction.
But then comes the real heavy lifter, the phrase for handling the tangent itself. Let's park that for now and make sure we come back to it. Here's where it gets really interesting, because the concept of parking an idea relies on brilliant imagery.
Oh, absolutely.
Think about it like having leftovers from a dinner party. If someone hands you a plate of food they cooked and you just scrape it directly into the trash can while maintaining eye contact, that's incredibly rude. They're going to be offended.
Yeah, that would be brutal.
But if you take that plate, put some nice plastic wrap over it, and carefully place it in the fridge, you're saying, this is good, I want this, I'm just saving it for a more appropriate time. You haven't thrown their idea in the trash, you've parked it in the fridge.
Exactly, you're validating their cooking.
Yeah.
When you say, that's a really important point, you're tasting the food and saying, this is great, let's wrap it up for later, it completely bypasses their ego.
You're not attacking them, you're just managing the timeline.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the genius of this sequence is in the psychological framing. If you just interrupt someone and say, that's off topic, or we don't have time for that, you've essentially scraped their food into the trash.
Yeah, and they'll get so defensive.
They will shut down, or worse, they will become combative. But by validating them first, that's an important point, you disarm them. Then you pivot to, let's park that for now, which allows you to maintain total control of the map you drew at the beginning of the meeting. It is a masterful redirection of energy.
You validate, you redirect, you keep moving. It's almost like a martial art for corporate communications. But all right, let's fast forward. You've successfully opened the meeting, you've fended off the tangents, you've parked the leftovers in the fridge. Now you are approaching minute 23 of your allotted 25 minutes.
The danger zone.
Yes, you are nearing the end. But a meeting is completely useless if everyone logs off and no one actually knows what they're supposed to do next. We need to talk about accountability and the art of the close.
Here is where most people completely fall apart. They survive the 25 minutes, they run out of time, and then they just sort of trail off. They look at the clock and say, well, look at the time. I guess we'll wrap it up here. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Yes. And then 3 days later, someone messages the group chat saying, hey, did anyone end up sending that contract to the vendor? And of course, no one did, because everyone assumes someone else was going to do it.
Exactly.
The fatal mistake here is how leaders ask for volunteers at the end of a call. They ask, does anyone want to take this?
Asking, does anyone want to take this, is practically begging for the bystander effect. It gives every single person in the room an easy psychological out.
It really does.
If you ask 15 people if they want to do extra work, everyone assumes the person next to them will step up. So no one does. It's weak language.
The exact phrase you should use instead is, who's going to own this? And I want to pause on that word, own. It carries so much more weight than the word take. Taking something sounds temporary, like you are just carrying a box down the hallway for a minute.
Just holding it.
Right. Owning something is permanent. You are putting your name on the title. It implies responsibility, and it implies that if this fails, we know exactly whose door to knock on.
It creates true accountability, but vocabulary alone isn't enough. Assigning tasks requires a specific physical action to back up the language. Direct eye contact. You don't ask the void who's going to own this. You look directly at an individual, use their name, and ask, Sarah, who's going to own the vendor email?
That's so powerful.
The phrase, combined with that direct visual connection, is what physically manifests the accountability in the room.
It's the lock and key. You need both the word own and the physical focus. Now, how do we adapt that crucial physical element of eye contact remotely? Because you can't really look someone in the eye on a grid.
You look directly into the camera lens on your laptop. Not at the screen, not at their tiny box in the corner, but into the glass lens. When you pair their name with who's going to own this, and you look into the lens, you create the illusion of unbroken eye contact. It is highly effective.
That naturally leads into the highly structured three-part close. It's a rigid formula you apply to the final 2 minutes of the meeting. Step 1. To summarize what we've agreed, and you clearly list the actual decisions made. Step 2. Let's make sure we have clear next steps, and you attach the specific names of the owners and the dates to those steps. And step 3. I'll send a follow-up email.
That third step is vital because it transitions the spoken agreements into a permanent written record. Saying I'll send a follow-up ensures that the last 25 minutes wasn't just a casual chat. It makes the accountability real.
Why does this final impression carry so much weight? Because arguably, the close of the meeting needs to be even more structured and formal than the opening.
It comes down to human psychology, specifically the peak end rule. Human memory is heavily biased toward the final moments of an experience. A clean, highly structured close is the ultimate tool for leaving an impression of competence.
That makes total sense.
If you trail off and mumble your way out of the call, people will quite literally forget the meeting even happened. The vibes take over again. But if you execute a sharp three-part close, they leave that call believing that you are a highly organized, highly effective professional. You've controlled the narrative right up to the final second, and that is what they will remember.
So what does this all mean? It means that you now have a highly specific, tested toolkit of language to survive and, frankly, dominate corporate meetings in English. You aren't just reacting to the vibes anymore, hoping things work out. You are constructing the environment.
You're building the map.
Exactly. You know to start exactly on time by passing the awkward waiting game with, "Shall we get started?" You know to set an agenda and a strict time limit to relieve anxiety. You know how to politely but firmly interrupt with, "Can I jump in here?" and how to save your timeline by telling people, "Let's park that," so their egos remain intact. And you know how to lock in accountability with, "Who's going to own this?" followed by a rigid three-part close.
It is a complete operating system for navigating group dynamics. And the beauty of these phrases is that they work regardless of your natural personality type. You don't have to be naturally extroverted or domineering. You don't have to be the loudest person in the room. The structure of the language does the heavy lifting for you.
It really takes the pressure off.
It does. It bridges cultural gaps, clarifies expectations for international colleagues, and sets a standard of professionalism that everyone in the room will respect.
And that brings us to a challenge we have for you, the listener. We want you to take this toolkit out of theory and put it into practice. In your very next meeting, even if you are not the one running it, even if you are just a participant, we want you to use just one phrase.
Just one.
When the conversation gets muddy or someone is monopolizing the floor and you have something valuable to add, use the phrase, "Can I jump in here?" Don't wait for permission.
Yeah.
Don't talk over them aggressively. And most importantly, don't stay silently frustrated in the background. Just say it and go. See how it lands. See how it feels to smoothly enter the lane of conversation and take up space.
This raises an important question, though, and it's something I want you to really ponder after we wrap up today. We've talked extensively about the mechanics of control, and we noted that asking who's going to own this requires projecting focus into a camera lens to create that inescapable accountability. But let's go back to that agonizing scenario we started with. The 15 people on the video call.
The gallery view of despair.
Exactly. In our modern era of remote work, where those 15 people might be looking at different screens, where their webcams are off-center, or where half the grid has their cameras turned off entirely, how do we push that authority even further? If someone refuses to turn on their camera, how do you adapt that crucial physical element of eye contact? How do you project that same unblinking, heavy accountability through a tiny glass lens to a person hiding behind a static profile picture? That is the next frontier of mastering the digital room, and it's a puzzle every remote professional has to solve.